Whoever you are, whenever you are, and wherever you are, you're listening to UPSTAGED, the official podcast for Ronin Theatre Collaborative. On today's episode, we'll be interviewing the new artistic director and co-founder of Ronin, Cody Goulder. We'll be talking about Fat Men in Yoga Pants, our upcoming production after a Klingon Hamlet, A Doll's House, the season, and just the general state of theater in Arizona. I'm your host, E.C. Darlingbond. Talk to you after this quick break. All right, so we are back on UPSTAGED, the official podcast for Ronin Theatre Company. I have the one and only Cody Goulder. Oh, God.
I like being the Cody.
We went through a whole thing about Cody's last name before going the podcast because I realized, as I told you, Cody, never said your last name out loud before. I always just call you Cody.
That's the first time for everything, and no matter what.
Yeah.
It's always fun being the number two in a podcast.
But you are now the new number one. You are the artistic director for Ronin Theatre Collaborative, or at least will be as soon as Klingon Hamlet is over. I know it's like we're in that transition where you are doing most of the responsibilities now. In that like lead up to it, how's it going?
It's busy. It's a good feeling. I it's hard for me to call myself artistic director right now because Keith is still involved, and this was our brainchild, and he's been the center point for all of it. And I'm honored into stepping into his shoes beyond measure. And so it's still a lot to process and swarm and take on, but it's going great. Like, it's busy, and there's a lot of things that we still have to kind of wrap up and finish up for the 2025 season, but they're going very well. Like, we have a lot of really exciting things coming up down the pipe, and then there's exciting things for 2026.
Right.
I'm holding it together so far, so I haven't broken the ship just yet.
Well, we'll see how things go, but if the ship goes down, I'm going down with you. That touching moment of cynicism aside. So, Cody, upcoming after a Klingon Hamlet, we have our next show, kind of a special event. It's a one-person show with Ben Corbett, Fat Men in Yoga Pants, and you guys are already in rehearsal for that as we speak.
Yep.
How is that coming along?
Fat Men in Yoga Pants is going great. Tell the audience a little bit about it because this is a new work. And just to kind of put my platform on here, me as an artist, most people don't know me as an artist. They know me as a director. Some people know me playwriting. Some people know me from acting, all that. But my big champion is new works and new plays and new playwrights. And I've been very fortunate in that to be able to go to many different places with many different companies and meet many different people. So fast forwarding essentially to Fat Men in Yoga Pants. I mean, this play began with a fantastic New Works Theater Conference, the Theater Conference in Valdez, Alaska. Just a little background about that. That is the new play festival that was co-founded by Edward Albee back in the early 2000s. Edward Albee is no longer with it and had left prior to my arrival even. But it's run by the incredible Dawson Moore and his team up in Alaska. And it's all new plays. You have to submit to get in. You are invited to spend a week in this tiny little fishing town in the middle of Alaska where you walk everywhere. There's seagulls and eagles and rabbits galore. And that's where the story of me meeting Ben comes into play. Ben Corbett is a professor at the University of Arkansas Fayetteville. And he is a voice and dialect coach predominantly. And Ben was a featured artist the first time I met him at the conference, and year after year you go back to the conference if you're lucky enough to go, and you build relationships. Well, Ben and I have become very, very good friends and very, very, very good colleagues. His work has been seen in previous Ronin productions of Playboy: The Western World and Venus and Fur last year. For anybody who saw it, the dialect work on that was all Ben's baby. And Ben approached me with an interest to write a play, and he had some ideas, and so we've collaborated. I've been working as his dramaturg on it predominantly for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. We've been developing this script and getting it in front of readings and finding its heart and its pulse. And we have an emotional, a funny, a serious, at times kind of sexy one-person show rather. That is Fat Men in Yoga Pants. And we're deeply honored that, I'm going to give Keith a ton of credit for it because Keith is the one who said, yeah, we'll do this one. Why not? I obviously wouldn't be doing this play without Keith in the first place, without saying, yeah, let's do this. But we are bringing Fat Men in Yoga Pants to audiences on July 11th through the 13th. So it's a 1-week run at the ICC, and you're going to fall in love with Ben. Ben is just the sweetest. He is so passionate and so gracious and so creative that this has been a fantastic experience. Now, to talk about the rehearsal of it, Ben lives in Arkansas. I obviously live in Arizona. So we've been meeting to do Zoom rehearsals, which is a completely new experience for me to begin with because I've never rehearsed on Zoom before. But it's going very, very, very well. And we have a fantastic creative team behind us as well, bringing something that is very personal, very soulful, and not like anything you're going to see in the Valley in any way, shape, or form. And it sits into the banquet that I have of new plays because I want to bring as many new plays to our audiences as possible. But now I'm rambling. I should probably pause a second to breathe.
No, you're giving me great copy for the marketing later on because then I can just pull from this interview, go like, you've never seen anything like this before. It's deep, it's personal, it'll move you.
It's true. I mean, to tell you, if your listeners need any more incentive aside from a great title like Fat Men in Yoga Pants, to give you a little bit, the play is about a middle-aged gay man who is following his very tricky, very difficult divorce at middle ages, processing his life, his feelings, and his attitudes about body image, sex, relationships, and deep love and purpose, all within the confines of an hour-long yoga session. So you're going to get a fantastic hour-plus play with a guy ranging everywhere you could possibly go.
Should we encourage people to bring their own yoga mats if they want to join in?
If you want to participate, you absolutely can.
We have no liability if you get injured while performing the yoga.
That's true. We may have to have you yoga to the outskirts of it.
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully Ben can be on this podcast too, and you can ask Ben a bunch of questions about the process as well.
Oh, we will, especially because I know it's a personal one for him, and I want to know, where do you find that divide between writing someone as a character who resembles you but is not completely you?
And the beautiful thing with what this is Ben's first play. It's his very first play that he's put on his feet and put together, and you get annoyed because you're like, this is so good, and you're doing it the first time. What the hell? I couldn't be more proud of him, and it really is a fantastic ride of a play. It hits all the heartstrings. Like, you don't even have to do yoga to enjoy the play. You come and experience a person being an artist in their element and just doing some really challenging things too. It's just a joy to watch, and I feel pertinent story, an emotional story, and one that I think is going to connect to a lot of audiences, regardless of how fit you are, how fat you are, how whatever and whoever. It's a winner of a play, and I'm very, very excited to bring it to Arizona here in a couple months.
Oh, yeah. Plus, especially with how little it requires in terms of set, because it is pretty much Ben and a yoga mat, we're going to be able to sell so many tickets.
Oh, just want people to squeeze in and see it as much as they can. I know it's a limited run, so definitely buy tickets as soon as they're available.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of... when you get a new play like this, the hard challenge, regardless whether it's a 1-week run or a 100-week run, is how do you tell? This is the conversation I have with people about new plays all the time. Is how do you sell them? How do you get audiences to see something they don't recognize? Well, my first go-to is movies. There are new movies released every weekend. We don't spend our time and budgets reissuing calls to see West Side Story or Gone with the Wind or To Kill a Mockingbird. We don't do that, so why do we do that in theater? And that becomes the challenge and the joy of discovering something. My philosophy from a new works perspective is that give the audience something they've never seen before, and even if they have, make it feel like they're seeing it for the first time. And with new plays especially, like, you can't rest on the laurels of the same old tired thing, the same narrative, the same book that gets really old. And just because it worked the first time doesn't mean that it's going to have the same impact moving forward. And the rush of seeing something brand new, the rush of an audience to get told a story right in the moment, at the crux, at the pinnacle of true creation, is such a drug. It's such an emotional rush. Like, to know when you hear a word that has never been spoken before by anybody before, you go, "Oh my, this is amazing," and that emotional rush, like, you never forget. And obviously, of course, selfishly for me, like, I have colleagues and friends that write plays. I want to see their work developed. I want to see them enter the lexicon, the pantheon, and hopefully reach the heights of your Arthur Millers, your Sarah Rules, your William Shakespeare's, God forbid. And we have to share those stories. We have to be brave enough to take the plunge into new narratives and untapped playwrights and say, this is the world we're living in now. We're not just trying to find something from the old to reciprocate to the new. We're finding brand new things that speak to the right now of what we're talking about now and who we are. And that urgency, I just feel like more than ever, matters, not just from an artist standpoint, but from a community standpoint. We get to ask the questions of what's happening right now. We don't have to make it an educational document or have a lexicon about the meaning of it. And to be able to produce new plays and develop new plays is just a small piece in a new window. And I can safely say that next season with Ronin, there will be a lot more new works plays. But they're going to be exciting. They're going to be the ones that you're going to want to come see real badly. I promise you.
Do you find that focusing on new works is what keeps theater from being, for lack of a better term, kind of an elitist art form? In that there, I know it's a conflagration of between ticket prices, what gets produced, who gets produced, and all that jazz. But it is hard to make the argument sometimes for theater of just like, yes, we are going to go see a live performance that will range between 1.5 to 2 hours, and what we can keep relevant, because unfortunately, we all got bills to pay. Like, we all are working jobs on top of our theater professions. But focusing on new works, do you find that helps bridge that gap of like what you are paying for, what you are coming in to see is something that you haven't seen before, and the fact that it doesn't have the remove of just watching it in a movie theater? Do you think that is helping? I'm rambling a little bit myself.
No, I'm following you.
Yeah.
I'm going to address that in kind of two different ways, because that's a very, very, very good question, because I don't want to sit here and poo-poo works that have been published and mean something and we can use for education and we can build a season around. That's not all what I want to do. I love those things. I love Shakespeare as much as the next person. But there is a safety in it, that I pay the rights for Death of a Salesman. I know I'm going to get Death of a Salesman. You don't have to really push too hard as a way to describe it. Like, you can do Death of a Salesman, it's going to sell tickets because the name recognition is there. There's a lot of safe money tied into it. And the fact that we don't sponsor new works in a way that gives them the chance to be brand recognition is more of a detriment on the current landscape of art than it is anything else. Like, I have a feeling, me personally, in my observations, that we look at theater and we say, okay, what can I do to sustain? We don't look at theater as a form of expression. We look at it as a form of sustainability. How many people can I get into my butts to the seats? How many student matinees can I have? How much royalties is it going to be? How much set is there going to be? We think about theater in economics. And not that there's anything wrong with it, because God knows I love a good musical. And they're expensive, but I love a damn good musical. The problem comes then at a certain point that you ask, am I just doing something for the business, or am I trying to push the art form forward? And I love that's what new works provide. New works give you the opportunity to push the format further and further and further down the line. It makes artists better to keep having to do something different. and to test the model and push audiences to think differently. So I mean, like, to use an example, I'm a little rambling too, so I apologize. You think about like law procedurals, cop shows. They have the same format every time. You know, you can figure out who the killer is, what the twist is, what this is, and you go to it every single day. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's comforting. You have the expectation. You're able to sit through it and you're good to go. And we do that with theater too. Like, we know how the Crucible ends. We know what Stella means. We know where Hamlet finds York's skull in the Klingon base. Know all these things. They're comforting for us. And there's nothing wrong with entertainment for comfort value. But what about the artist? What gives us the voice to try something different? Like, for example, you know, if you talk to European theaters, you're talking about the legacy of a performance. You know, so-and-so played Hamlet, so-and-so played Hamlet, so-and-so played Hamlet. And you measure that stick by what came before. But at the same time, there was eventually a time where someone performed Hamlet for the very first time, and that was exciting, and that was new, and that woke the audience up. It gave them something they never saw before, and it drove the art form, and it pushed it forward for decades, century, and hundreds of years to come. And that's where I feel like we need new plays more than ever. It's to not only refresh the database of American culture and world culture, the world, not only to refresh those voices and find narratives for today and challenges, but also performers get to make something brand new for the first time. Like, that play gets published, you are going to be the first person on that cast sheet that says this play was originally produced by with so-and-so playing da-da-da-da-da. And I don't know about you, but I giggle at the prospect of being like, oh God, my name is finally etched in his get to be part of a publishing legacy and a performance legacy that can grow and grow and grow, so that you have another character who becomes the next Willie Millman, the next Troy Maxson, the next Blanche Dubois. And unfortunately, like, our resources for new plays are even worse than published works. Like, it's very hard to publish a new play without performances, without reviews, without someone just looking at something. So it takes a very special type of producer, a very special type of director and actor and writer to trust so wholeheartedly in a product and a piece that is untapped, is uncertain. But I mean, isn't that what the Age of Explorers was? I mean, sure, there's colonialism on it, but we're not going to talk about that right now. But the idea to cross the ocean in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I find that what when you talk about, like, you know, these classics that are comforting, but after a while, something comforting does become stale. Mm-hmm. Like, I think we're seeing this especially in our sister industry, you know, the cinema. It's just a lot of, okay, let's remake, reboot, redo something else new. And when there isn't like an original work, like Sinners is currently in the news. By the way, if you haven't seen Sinners, go watch Sinners.
I've seen it times. I love that movie.
Yeah, good, because I was about to use it as a metaphor for something later. So that I'm glad we have both seen it at least once. But what I find is that eventually it just becomes so stale, and it's just like, well, why bother going at a certain point? To use Sinners, it feels like how the vampires will just keep you stuck in just like one frame, and we seem to be stuck in this very mid-20th century like plays, to where it's like, yeah, you know, you do an Arthur Miller play, you maybe get as far as into the 80s and drawing from playwrights then, but it just seems like we've been stuck in this milieu of just like, yeah, everything from 1950 to 1990, that is the last time new works were allowed to be. And part of that is the industry, and we're just seeing that in film, to where it's like, it's as if there's almost a business incentive to just keep everything at the same place.
And on top of that, like, I'll add the cynicism, the audience cynicism, or the critical cynicism of it. Like the writings on Sinners that opening weekend, like why are we poo-pooing a movie that opened at $40 million first weekend saying it's a failure or saying it underperformed when you don't even look at the product and say, well, this is a great movie. This is a well-crafted movie. This is a fantastic story. Like, sure, vampires attack in a siege horror movie. That's not an unfamiliar format for us, but it's the characters and it's the conversation and the story and the approach to which it has resonated with audiences. And we shouldn't look at those risks and we shouldn't look at those opportunities as something to be afraid of. That's what I feel like they want us to think. They want us to feel like because it is different, it is not going to work. Let me tell you something, though. I've done my fair share of new plays, not just here, but in Los Angeles many, many years ago. I have never once lost money on a new play. Probably going to end my streak at some point in my life, whatever, because that just happens. That's life. Yeah. But if you make the product, if you support the product, and if you care about it, like you can care about production of Neil Simon's Rumors. That's fine. Go for it. That's a funny play. It puts people in the seats and it's great. But if you can give the audience something they're going to remember, they're more likely to come back. They're more likely to remember something and seek out that different, to wake us up out of the daze and the expectation, the assumption that whatever we're going to see in front of us is the same pattern or the same whatever. We owe it to ourselves as artists to be the drivers of the conversations we want to have, not the receivers of it.
Okay, well, I'm putting that in a cross stitch later, so I'll have to find a place in my apartment to hang it up, but it'll go on the wall.
It is true, though. Like the nature of art in our country and the nature of art in the world is people say, okay, what can you do for me? No, the answer is, what can I do for you? The answer comes down to us as artists, because it's a sacrifice. We don't make much money being in Ronin Theatre Collaborative. A lot of us volunteer a lot of hours and a lot of time. We better make this shit worth it for us. And I'm sorry, but I don't want to spend all of my time doing something that someone else has done before. They're just going to do across town 3 months later.
If they're still there. That actually brings me into our next round of conversation. We're seeing a lot of our friendly competitors, rivals, our friends. In many cases, we're seeing a lot of our fellow theater companies being kicked out of their spaces. Most recently, Scottsdale Desert Stages recently shuttered their doors due to a raw deal by Fashion Square Mall. In my opinion, not the opinion of the theater company, but in the opinion of me, E.C. Darlingbond, it was a raw deal, especially after they were promised a space to make a parking lot for the mall. That became their landlord. We are also seeing that with Starlight Community Theater recently now looking for a new venue space. Is this shuttering that we're seeing across the valley, is that just because theater companies are not pushing themselves? Is it a question of how much money it is to just have a plot of land to where you can do that if you're able to afford just buying a building outright?
That's a great question. I feel there's a lot. That's more of a cauliflower response. There's a lot of sprouts and a lot of things going everywhere. A couple different attacks. The way to look at this: land is expensive, buildings are expensive, and if you're not able to afford the building outright, you are at the mercy of your landlords. Now, if we're talking about the place where Desert Stage is performed, yes, the rent in that is raising up and up and up, and that's the discretion of a landlord. That, quite frankly, landlords would rather have an empty building that they just sit on as a tax write-off for hours and hours than fill it with profitable businesses within your community. They're just not going to do that.
Oh yeah, when I was there opening night for Guys and Dolls this last year, and the AC completely collapsed. Like, it just didn't work, and the landlord, the mall, basically just waited it. Essentially, we're trying to hold off on long as possible before getting it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So it does feel sometimes that we are not in collaboration, but in competition against the landlords.
Absolutely, because if you look at the theater building, it's not by and large a profitable thing. It's completely subjective. a theater building, by and large of itself, it takes up energy, it takes up water, it takes up food. You have to change the AC when you put enough butts in the seats. And then this also ties on to production values. Like you buy a play with a 20-person cast, everybody needs 1 or 2 costumes, everybody needs a big set and a big fly stuff. That's a financial drain. And a lot of that does come with the way we license plays and the way that we push we push published works. We do a lot of plays for children, and not that that's a bad thing. We should do plays for children, but we need to do it responsibly. And this brings me to the next point, that with rental spaces being harder and harder to refurbish and come by, there was also a mentality back in the 50s and the 60s especially, and it's true especially in Broadway currently right now, of a patron who will pay for you. A rich donor who will graciously give you all the money in the world to do whatever you want to do. Like, that dream died a long time ago. And you find yourself at the mercy of either boards that are frugal to spend money, they don't really want to push an agenda, or you are forced to pay for something out of pocket and you basically live from day to day to day to day. And it gets hard. And if you have one bad show or one sellout or one gnarly wrap up, like, you're kind of screwed for things.
Yeah.
Text messages. So in the nature of like having your own space in theater, I feel it's a lot of different things at play. It's the nature of landlords and real estate, and that we just don't have an infrastructure really. Like, I love how we've been able to, in this modern age, really take the storefront theater and make it something viable and make it something wonderful. Even if it's not the classy, big classical theater building, like it's not going to Phoenix Theater or going to Gamage or whatnot. But we've been very resourceful on that. The catch is keeping the money going.
Yeah. Well, not just keeping the money going, but, for Ronin specifically, we are in partnership with the Irish Cultural Center and McClelland Library in downtown Phoenix, who have been really great partners for us in giving us at least a home to where we can rehearse and, work with them on putting up the shows. We are also working with Cody Goulder and Stage Left, sometimes getting to tour our performances over there, and with the folks at Flagstaff Shakespeare with their Beaver Street Theater. So is that going to be the model for the industry, at least here in Arizona, to where we need to be more cooperative with one another?
I definitely think cooperation helps, but there is such thing as too much cooperation. Like, we have a co-pro coming up later this season. 6 Rounds of Vengeance will be a co-pro between Pantheon Movement, which is a educational fight choreography organization run by some very close friends of ours, and All Queer Shakespeare. This will be one of their shows in their next upcoming season. But we've had a lot of conversations to make sure that we're having a fair, equal balance and everyone is pitching in, which they are. We're having a great partnership so far with everybody. And we had a great partnership earlier this year with Space 55 when we produced Babylon.
Yeah.
There's such a thing as too much collaboration. There is such a thing as leaning into someone else that has a space and you become co-opted or you overuse your resource. Weirdly, think of it like cattle industry back in the Old West. You had a pasture of land, you overgrazed it, well, no one can use it anymore, and we don't want to overgraze our theater community. And I'm not expecting more established theater companies to suddenly open their doors for a bunch of new people and say, here you go, because everybody needs to have a vision and everybody needs to have a drive and needs to have a way to look at it. The way Ronin does things are very different than any other company out there, even though we will do a classic. I mean, we'll do new plays, which I've pushed ever since joining Ronin back in 2020. I think collaboration is important, but at the same time, we also have to really champion ourselves. We can't look at just throwing away money because we can. When we get those grants, if we're so lucky to get a grant, make sure you're using that grant for something good, that you're using it to pay an artist. One of the great things about Ronin that I love from the beginning is we've been able to at least give people some kind of compensation for the work that they do, for the drives that they take, for the energy they exude. And my God, my dream is in 10 years, we have our own building where we're paying people really nice stipends, and we're giving everyone like our team is getting a sizable part-time wage. Like, that's the dream. We shouldn't stop pushing for our own venues and our own places to do theater, but we can't vulture off of each other. And that also includes intellectual property. Like, I love that we have collaboration and communication, and we try to make sure we're not overlapping shows and seasons and projects. And maybe that's the blessing that we have with new plays, that the odds of someone producing a show like Fat Man in Yoga Pants is probably not going to happen because we have contact with the playwright. But that mindfulness, that understanding that we are all part of a bigger conversation and a bigger representative pool, and that it's up to us to pull the slack and to do the projects that are different and are eye-opening and are energized and engaged. Sure, you can keep playing to the same age audience who has the same hairstyle and listen to the same music. You could milk that until they're all dead and gone. But then what do you do next? What's the next thing that comes into play? Unfortunately, it's not the right. I guess a long way to answer your question. I think collaborations in transient and moving spaces are kind of the right now because so many other companies don't have an option right now. And again, we're looking for those rich donors who are like, let me give you a bunch of money to do this, I'll do this, and this. And that just doesn't happen right now. You got to be very lucky and very fortunate to find someone who is willing to give you the 25,000, the 50,000 that you're asking for to run a full season. And then
especially after the pandemic, I have no rich relatives to cozy up to. So,
and hell, like, people that want to cozy up to, they got other things to worry about. They have other stuff to do. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, as we're entering the final stretch, we have auditions coming up on May 17th for your next show, Fat Men in Yoga Pants, A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen. So what was the impetus for choosing this show?
Okay.
And when, so first question, actually, when was this show chosen? As like, let's do the show.
This was actually one of the last shows Keith selected in his season. Doll's House was selected for production approximately this time last year.
So before the election. Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's where I come into why I think Doll's House is an exciting play regardless of won the election. Like, this is a twofold answer. Firstly, there are very, very, very few plays that we have, let alone the public domain and whatnot, which the Doll's House is. But we have a play where we can absolutely capture a moment in which the world changed. This play is one of those signature pieces of literature, not just theater, not just plays, but literature that captured a moment where things shifted and changed, and they have not gone back since. And that's really cool. That's fascinating to see what something was like before, and then drop of a dime, it changed forever. People that know the play know it. This is a spoiler-free conversation, even though the play is, 200 years old, give or take. I'm not going to spoil it, but there is where it changes. And that is fantastic that we have that in the record, and we need to see that kind of stuff even more. I'm very partial to plays with strong, I'm not even gonna say strong, with well-defined, diverse, interesting female identifying leads. This is similar to true of the play I directed last season, Venus and Fur, where Vonda is a sexy, intelligent, articulate chameleon of a person, and Doll's House and Nora provides us something completely different. It's kind of funny that this and Hedda Gobbler were the two plays that I was pitching once we got closer to the side of the season, because they both speak to each other so much. They're both, the way I'm approaching Doll's House, for anyone who's listening, is that for everybody else, this play is a romantic comedy. For everyone else in the show, Torvald, everyone, it's a romantic piece.
I think I heard it described by Crash Course Theater on YouTube as bourgeoisie people in trouble.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I have no idea they're in trouble. And then you have Nora, who is in a psychological horror. Nora is on the verge of a nervous breakdown the entire play. keeping herself together, and so that she does not fall apart. And we're seeing this duality and this dichotomy that is very rich and really fun. And you tapestry of like essentially a very dark psychological understanding of a person stuck in a house with the backdrop of a melodrama where we have a villain who is a mustache twirling so-and-so. We have a female ingenue who pops in and muddies up the situation. We have the comic relief of a doctor. Like, they're very dark themes in what is essentially a Victorian melodrama, but speaks to us so much in the right here and the right now. And I think regardless of who won the election, this is a play that talks about what are you going to do? And it's not just men and women. It's what are you going to do to take a stand for yourself and who you are. And no other play has touched the rail that this play has touched. Like, this play was so controversial, the Germans made Ibsen write an entirely different ending. True story. Right. We have the version where it is the German version of the end of this play, and it is vastly different.
The long history of making compromises with your producers of like, okay, but only in Germany will we do this.
Yeah, and some people just straight up either made up their ending or they closed it off. But like, the controversy of Doll's House, it was so shocking and so whatever that we almost take that for granted right now. And I want to bring back that shock. I want to bring back that surprise. I want to bring back that awakening in the soul of our audiences that come to see this majestic, wonderful drama that is about individualism and autonomy and control and what do I really live for and what do I really love for. This is a play that is 100% in my wheelhouse when it comes to pre-published works. I don't want to say classics or published pieces because I feel like that's poo-pooing other things, but I love Shakespeare as much as I love the new plays, and Doll's House fits right in the middle of that for me. And it's going to be an exciting play. Yeah, if you haven't signed up for auditions yet, there's still only a couple slots left, so do it.
And it's mostly cold reading in partnerships because we love actors. We know that actors hate having monologues prepared.
Well, I love a good monologue next to that person, but what am I going to get out of it?
I am speaking for myself as whose anxiety comes from like, did I choose the right monologue? Crap.
Oh yeah. And then you have that moment where you're like, oh shit, I went up online.
Or when they ask you, like, do you have a different monologue prepared as well? Yes, totally. Just give me a moment.
Seconds. Look my notes right here. But yeah.
I'll do the box monologue from Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. I know you haven't heard that one before, but here it goes.
There you go. You're welcome. Yeah, we chose cold reads to auditions. I love to see actors play.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this podcast, here's a hint of what to do with your audition. I love to play. And this play especially is going to let us play and it's going to have fun. I'm not a traditional theater director by any stretch. The people that have worked with me before, including yourself, will know that I don't do things the by the books way. I like to play, and cold reads allow me to play a little bit, where it gets you out of your head and puts you right into your body, which is what this play needs.
I'm so excited to see it. And I'm so excited. We have a ton of people signed up for it. I think we have like 10 spots left.
Yep.
For the later afternoon for anyone who wants to come in. So again, that will be May 17th at the Irish Cultural Center in downtown Phoenix. Again, thank you for Irish Cultural Center for
Kira and Archie, the ICC. Absolutely. Thank them for everything they do for us. I know they're excited for Klingon Hamlet. If you've not bought your tickets yet for Klingon Hamlet, they are up and they are live for ICC performances. Hopefully we'll have stage left tickets up soon. Hopefully they're up at the time of this recording.
And Beaver Street through Flagstaff Shakespeare has their ticket link up as well. And then don't forget to come and see Fat Man and Yoga Pants running July 11th through July 13th, again, at the Irish Cultural Center. Hopefully we'll have the ticket link up for that end of the month, or at least at the very latest by June. Yeah. But Cody, thank you again so much for meeting me here and talking about basically all the things that I wanted to cover. Like, I know We give ourselves a hard time for rambling, but you know what? It saves time on the questions.
That's very true. Eric, thank you so much for having us. Thank you for having this podcast. It's great to be here. I could sit here and talk about new plays and the state of theater and whatnot till the cows come home, and I get to talk about one of my favorite people on the planet. So this is a blast. And, you know, to echo Eric, come see Klingon Hamlet, come see Fat Man in Yoga Pants, come audition for Doll's House. We want you. We want you there. Not only do we love new plays, but we love new actors too. So this has been a joy and an honor, and feel free to talk anytime.
And that's all for Upstaged. Thanks, Cody.
Thanks, Eric.